Iceberg, right ahead, is what could be heard on the night of April 14, 1912 at 11:40 p.m. Frederick Fleet spotted the 100-foot-tall iceberg just 37 seconds before the Titanic collided with it. The Titanic sinking was the largest non-war related tragedy in history. Between the disaster and the movie, the Titanic remains one of the most famous tragedies in history still today. I have been fascinated with the Titanic for as long as I can remember. I've read multiple books and articles over the Titanic, and I visited museums in Branson, Missouri, and Orlando, Florida. The Titanic was considered unsinkable, but how did it sink? Let's start with why the ship was so popular before it ever sank. The Titanic was thought to be the largest, safest, most luxurious ship at its time. The Titanic was indeed the largest ship at its time. According to How Big Was the Titanic, dated 2014, published by Titanic Facts, 882 feet, 9 inches was the total length of the Titanic. She weighed a whopping 46,328 tons. That's 1,328 tons more than her sister ship, the Olympic. At the time of 1912, this was a massive ship. The Titanic was believed to be the safest ship ever built. According to Why Titanic was called the Unsinkable Ship, dated 2019, published by the Titanic, the Artifact Exposition, the Titanic was equipped with a double-plated bottom and 16 watertight compartments in the hull. These watertight compartments would have doors on them that would close if water entered them, allowing the Titanic to stay afloat. 3,000 carpenters, engineers, electricians, plumbers, painters, master mechanics, and interior designers fit this ship with the latest marine technology and most extravagant fixtures and furniture. Given all the latest safety technology, how did this ship sink? The unsinkable ship met its fate just 4 days after its departure. The beginning of the maiden voyage was as normal as any other ship's maiden voyage. According to the Titanic Timeline and Overview, published by Titanic Timeline, the voyage began in Southampton at noon on April 10, 1912. The Titanic then stopped in France and Ireland to pick up additional passengers. The ship sailed through calm waters the 12th and 13th of April. Throughout the day on the 14th, the ship received 7 iceberg warnings. They should have just dropped the anchor there. 11:40 p.m., the ship struck an iceberg. Back to the Titanic timeline. Water poured in and rose 14 foot immediately in the front part of the ship. The iceberg punctured the first 5 watertight compartments, filling them rapidly with cold oceanic water. The front end was getting too heavy. The captain was informed that the ship could only stay afloat for a couple of hours. Calls for help were sent out, and passengers began to fill lifeboats. Only 28 people boarded the first lifeboat with a capacity of 65. The Titanic sank within 2 hours and 40 minutes. The Titanic will remain an international tragedy. The Titanic sank even though it was considered unsinkable. Just 58 miles away, the Carpathia heard the calls from the troubled Titanic. At 4:10 a.m., April 15, the first passengers were boarded on the Carpathia. 4 hours later, the Carpathia set sail for New York, carrying just 705 survivors out of the 2,227 total passengers on the Titanic. April 18th, they arrived in New York. The survivors' stories would be shared throughout the world.